What's up, nerds? Brandon here, and I'm starting off my reviews this week with Superior Spider-Man #1. And I don't really know what to say about this book. The ending of the book is something I thought we would see maybe 12 issues in, or maybe the final arc of the Superior Spider-Man, because we all know this is not going to last. But end of the first issue, and I don't know. First off, you start out and you have Peter Parker saying goodbye to his old life, or Otto Octavius saying goodbye to his old life of Otto Octavius at the grave, and he goes, now I'm Peter Parker, and I have to stick to that. And it's all the way he talks, it's very pretentiously written the way Peter Parker now talks. I understand it's Otto Octavius, but you're sitting there going, man, am I glad they never had a Doc Ock ongoing. By the end of this, like I said, I don't even, they gave you a couple weeks, 700 came out, you either were really angry or really stoked or whatever emotion you felt for Amazing Spider-Man, given a couple weeks now to kind of let that sink in and prepare yourself for the first issue of this brand new direction. And already they're looking for a way out of it. I'm going to keep reading this because I'm actually it ended and I laughed because I'm now I'm intrigued to see what goes on with this. But I don't know. I think this is an awful idea. It looks like they're going to undo it way sooner than we thought. I'm giving this 2 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. Let me know what you guys think.
Hey guys, I read World's Finest #8, and I have to say I'm not the most impressed by this book. This is the first time I've tried reading it, and I just found myself wanting more. One thing that was really interesting about this book was there were flashbacks of Huntress as a child being taught to use her strength from both Catwoman and Batman. That was really cool, but it wasn't in the book enough for me to really love it, so I'm only gonna give this book 2.5 Nerd Skulls.
Hey there guys, Kevin here with my comic reviews this week. I got to read Thor, God of Thunder, #4, and what? This book is ridiculously good. Jason Aaron is doing an amazing job with Esad Ribic. They are just putting together this Thor book that looks beautiful, looks great, it has these great paintings to it, but also is telling a story that spans Thor's existence, and it's the early stuff that you really don't know about, a little bit about through his past story, his past mythology, and what they've explained already in the Marvel Universe. But then you see thousands of years into the future, and Thor is the only god that is still around, and this one person is still tormenting him. And at the end of this issue, it leaves you with a huge cliffhanger that of course shows that the next issue's going to be an insane god throwdown. It's going to be awesome. It's going to explain everything, and it's going to look great. And I cannot wait for this. It's lacking in that big pop at the end where you kind of get a lot of resolved. In this issue, that's the one thing I wanted, but that's next issue, so I can't really complain all that much. So I'm going to give this 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. It was really, really good. Check this out.
So I got a chance to read First X-Men #5 this week, which is the wrap-up to the storyline, a storyline that we know pretty well, the history of the X-Men and the upbringing of Professor X's institute, which is a great storyline, and it's great to read over and over again. But it is a lot of information that we already know. There is some new information that's really interesting, relationships that we didn't know about. You get to understand why a few villains we know today are villains, and how they lost their loved ones and everything. And this was a great wrap-up to the series. Although the storyline was so good, the ending, I don't know. It didn't give me enough, and the artwork by Christos Gage was great, and the writing by Neil Adams was awesome, but it felt like they were kind of rushed to the ending, so I'm going to give this book 3 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
All right, I had a chance to read Animal Man #16. Still loving this book, still loving the Rot World stuff. We're introduced to the new Green Lantern during Rot World of Sector 2814, and it's pretty interesting. You get to see also what's going on currently with the rest of Animal Man's family when he first disappears into the rot before he comes back out and everything's all messed up. And like I said, I think this is a great story. These are great books, and I love that it's its own little thing going on just outside of the regular DCU. Like we're not just getting, like, it's its own contained story with these titles, and I'm loving that. So I'm giving this 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. Check it out.
Next up, I read Non-Humans #2, and I have to say, for me, this was my first time reading this series. The cover was a little bit misleading because I saw it was a teddy bear, and he's got like these metal gauntlets, and he's smoking a cigar, so I was like, okay, it's gonna be about badass animals, and it had nothing to do with that. For me, I think it was harder for me to get into it because I'm not the biggest dystopian future fan. But with that said, I still managed to enjoy a lot of what was going on just because of how messed up. It's about a future LA that is more messed up than you can ever imagine LA being. There's so many rules and regulations because of these non-humans that exist, and they're trying to prevent more non-humans, and they're trying to kill the non-humans that do exist. So there's a lot going on, and it's really interesting. Personally, I'm going to give it 3.5 Nerd Skulls, but if you like dystopian futures, I think you will like it even more than I did.
All right, guys, so I also got to read Adventure Time #11, and I got to say, it was toads of fun. And by toads of fun, I mean it was tons and loads of fun, which is probably the best way to describe Adventure Time in general. This book, it's great for kids, it's great for adults. Everyone can have a great time and laugh, and it has a lot of the same kind of jokes the show does. And there's a really, really good backstory with Susan Strong and the sneaky cat thing that I forgot what his name was, but it's really cool and it's really awesome. And if you have kids, if you don't have kids, read it and maybe you'll learn something. Maybe they'll learn something. Who knows? But I'm giving this 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
Detective Comics 16 came out this week, and it's a great issue because you don't get a lot of Joker. In fact, you get 0 Joker, but you get a lot of Batman and a lot of dark and gritty Batman, the kind where he just beats up everyone and really no one around him is a threat. This book is all about the small gangs that have risen because of Joker coming back, and they're all, most of them are pretty dumb and they just get scared when Batman shows up, but he beats up everybody else and he's not threatened by anyone, and it's a great book, and there was a really great backup story in it too, both by John Layman, which is awesome. I don't know if you love Chew, but I love Chew. You don't really see his influence in this book from Chew, but John Layman is still a great writer and he's a great storyteller, so I would give this book 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
This week I read Green Lantern New Guardians Annual #1, and I still am having such a tough time reading this Green Lantern book. I was kind of having a tough time with Core too, but they kind of got interesting, so figured I'd jump back in, start doing this again, and I'm not feeling it. It just feels like everybody's spread thin because you have so much going on with all these other lanterns. And everybody's kind of written with this like extreme attitude for each one. I mean, these are characters we've seen in Green Lantern before, and it feels a little forced. So, still not a giant fan of this book. I'll try to give it another read again, but it's just not doing it for me. I'm going to give it 2 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
All right, my next book is Fantastic Four #3, and I was really happy with this, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the fact that it was written by Matt Fraction. I absolutely love everything that I've read by him, so this is completely continuing on with just great writing. It's about, if you don't know what's been going on in the story, Reed was bitten by a dinosaur, and now his body is starting to deteriorate, so he's trying to covertly figure out what's going on with him and just find a cure without telling the rest of his family. So he's taking the kids on this big explorer's adventure to learn. So they're going through the universe essentially, which is really awesome. So they land on this planet and they get themselves into a little bit of trouble, and it's really interesting to see how they get out of it. And it's just a fun Fantastic Four story. I'm giving it 4.5 Nerd Skulls.
So I got a chance to read Repossessed #1, Another New Image #1, and I always read these because most of the time they're misses, but sometimes you get a real gem. And this one, it kind of starts out pretty strong. It kind of reminds me of Sons of Anarchy, but with demons. It's they're going around, these biker gang kind of thing. They're going around and they repossess demons to go back to hell. It's a pretty interesting idea, but it's not funny at all. It's really serious, and there's a lot of fighting and blood and guts everywhere, which is cool. And the artwork is really fun. So I'm going to give this book 3 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
Next up, I got to read B.P.R.D. number 103. Loving this title. This two-part story arc takes place before Return of the Master, the previous story arc we have read. So, I mean, it's noted in there too, just so there's no confusion. But still loving this book. I like how they're doing the big numbering now because, you know, you got to feel accomplished after 100 issues. But really cool story. Pretty crazy stuff that happens in here with one of the agents touching this weapon and basically gets transported to, I guess, back when the weapon was around and used into the body of whoever was holding the weapon. And you're not... They kind of leave it up for... leave it to your imagination. I mean, you can either say he's in that and this is where he's been, or he's in the future and he's reliving this. Either way, I'm loving this book. This is a cool little break from everything because I feel like this next story arc is just going to be incredible. So it's cool we get these 2 issues to kind of just have another classic B.P.R.D. story before things get absolutely crazy. So I'm giving this 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. Check it out.
The end of Infinite Vacation has finally come. Number 5 was released this week, and it is the wrap-up to the storyline of a guy that's basically able to go to any other alternate universe where he exists and kind of swap bodies with himself to go on a vacation. But he gets away from himself and starts just redoing that and continuing his vacation infinitely, which is a fun ride until his other selves start chasing after him, one of which is a cannibal, which is awesome. And then we learn all this stuff about the company that finances these vacations and everything, and it's this big thing, and eventually all of the universes start folding into themselves. It's a really good ending to the storyline, so much so that I want to give the entire series 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls, including this issue. Nick Spencer is genius. Christian Ward is like a graphic designer god. He's amazing with how he does all of his colors in this book. So I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls, and everyone should go back and read Infinite Vacation.
Last up, I got to read TMNT, Secret History of the Foot Clan, number 1. This was awesome. They go fully into the Foot Clan, where they came from, how they got started, and how it ties into the current Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle books that's coming out. How Shredder's involved, like the lineage and the timeline. You guys should definitely pick this up if you're reading the regular title. This is something you should be reading because it's a cool little backstory, and I'm sure all of this is going to end up playing into future storylines. So pick this up. I'm giving it 4 to 5 Nerd Skulls.